Dr. Reddick, thanks for allowing me to review your 2D and 3D analysis. I'm going to go over some characteristics and what we call hitting inhibitors that can impact your power contact as well as your efficiency. And so one of the first things we look for on your negative move is a sway. And so what we do is we draw, let me get back here. So we'll draw a line outside of your foot. Sometimes we do it at the ankle. Since you're somewhat starting in that position, we'll do 90. And so when we do this, what we don't want to see is that knee go past that line there. You see how you actually almost, your weight's on the outside of that foot and your foot actually rolls in a little bit. So I'm going to say you have a slight sway. So we like the powerful negative move, what you're doing, but sometimes it can be too much, but we'll see. I'm going to mark it as a sway. Whether it's truly affecting your swing or not is to be determined, but the fact that your ankle is rolling out a little bit, it might be, instead of loading on that leg, the weight might be shifting too much, and that can be a loss of power. Next thing we look for is loss of posture. So we take you on your negative move, and what we do is we look at right eye compared to your waist, kind of eyeballing it. Are you attacking the base there? And so we get you at the toe touch position. Are we still attacking? Maybe a little. Just kind of depends on where I think the middle of your belly is, your waistline. And so you may have lost that attack angle. And then once you get the heel plant, that's when we want you in that position. So ideally we want you attack, and then kind of non-attack position. I shouldn't say non-attack position, but we want you forward lean, and then kind of back. The bottom lines are exaggerated, but I just want you to see here, that first one, yeah, there's a little bit of forward lean, but as you transition, you probably go into, not probably, you go into a backwards lean sooner than what we would want you. So here, we still want you leaning forward, and then once on the heel plant, then that upper body shifts back. And so we will say that there is a loss of posture there. Other thing we look for, I'm just gonna unclick all this, is dead hands. So we take you back to that negative move. And we want to see, is there any space? So if I were to draw a line, I'll draw it up here. Do a little ruler, kind of mid hands to your nose. As you go through toe touch, do you increase that space between your hand and your nose? Bear with me here. So do we think that line is any different from that line? And I would say it's about the same. And the reason that's important to get that distance is you create elasticity, you create power that you can transfer through the ball. And so we would say you have dead hands here. Now looking at your paperwork, oh, where are you? Yeah, shoulders are a little tight. So we'll have to work on those shoulders to help you get that little stretch, that elasticity piece that will help out. And when I say they're tight, is that separation test where we have the bat next to your, really kind of next to your face, next to your neck, and then we stretch it out to the side. You did struggle with that a little bit, and that's possibly why you have the dead hands there. Next thing we look at, I forgot. Next thing we look at is loss of base. So what we do is we put you in a toe touch position. We'll say here, and then let me get rid of those lines. And then what we want to see is this knee pointing out over the toe. We don't want it facing us. And we actually want this left foot down. So kind of depending on where we call toe touch. If I call it here, you're okay. If I say here, you're not okay. So there may be a little bit of loss of base, but you might, let me see, here you're good. So it's real quick. 1, 2, that foot starts to come up, not completely. So I'm going to say there's a little bit of loss of base there. And that meaning that when you're in that toe touch position, we want a firm position. So you're borderline, but I'm going to be picky. I'm going to say there's a little bit of loss of base there. All right. Next question, are you hanging back? And so we draw a line on the back of your foot there. And what we don't want to see is you cross that line with your foot as you go through the swing. All right. And so a little mix there. As you can see, your whole foot comes up, but then you are up on your toes. And so then you slide your foot up. And so I'm going to say you do not have, that you're not hanging back, that you're getting a good weight shift towards the ball. I know the floor was a little slippery. And so that very well could have caused that back foot to lift up, but your follow through looks pretty good and you're kind of lifting up. All right. So we'll blame the elements for that foot moving so much. All right. Yeah, your foot slipped right in there. So I think you're good. All right. And so next thing we look for is what we refer to as a gate swing. And so really what we're looking for is this, we don't want that elbow getting stuck on the hips, all right? So as you go through, all right, sticky, it's okay to stick for 1 to 2 frames, but does it stick for 3 or 4 frames? And I would say yes, it does. So here, like 1, 2, 3, maybe coming off a little bit on 3, a little bit more on 4. But again, I'm kind of a picky person. And so I'm going to say you have a gate swing. And so that just means that elbow, instead of passing past the hip, it's getting stuck on the hip. That's a power drain. Also, it can impact efficiency. Next thing I'm going to do is put you in that toe touch position. And I think we said we're going to call toe touch here. So even if I do here or here, what I'm looking for, what's that elbow doing? Do you have what we refer to as a flying elbow? And so again, that elbow can impact the sequencing. And so when you're in certain positions like the toe touch, it's okay that the elbow starts out before that, but by the time you get the toe touch, we want the elbow in tight, because what it could potentially lead to is a push. Doesn't always lead to a push, but so you do catch up. So as you can see, as we get to this area here, you do have a straight line between your elbows and your wrist, but you're having to catch up. And anytime you're having to catch up on something, you can lose power efficiency. And so at certain spots of the swing, particularly toe touch here, so if we call that toe touch, elbow is outside the hands, foot a little bit more toe touch, still outside the hands, still outside the hands. Actually, even on heel plant, it's still outside the hands. So we will say you do have a flying elbow, and this could result in a push rather than whipping your hands through, but it does look like you catch up here. But again, just those little milliseconds can rob you of power there, all right? So flying elbow, but no push. We also check you at toe touch, make sure you're not dumping the barrel. We want the bat in front of the hands there. And then once you get to the heel plant position, I'm gonna draw a line, kind of anterior hips. We wanna make sure you're rotating around that line and not going past it there. That looks great, all right? And so let's look at you from the rear view mirror. I guess technically not the rear view mirror. We're just looking at you from behind. Let's go to Natalie. All right, zoom, zoom, zoom. What we're going to do here, get you going in that positive move. All right, so I'm going to stop you about right here. I'm going to draw a line kind of from your back glute all the way down. And what I want you to do is, for the most part, stay on that line. And I want you coming off of it. Oh, come off of it a little bit. That means you're throwing those hips forward. And what that means is you're decreasing the space between you and the ball here. And when it happens, say if someone throws you an inside pitch, just means you have less room for your hands to move. And so we would want to correct that piece. And some of that is related to just overall core strength, pelvic tilt. Admittedly, my handwriting is unclear. I have a big X on your pelvic tilt. So I don't know if that means you couldn't do it, because if you could do it, that means I put a check. Maybe you couldn't do it, or either I forgot to check it one. So at some point, we'll have to make sure you can do the pelvic tilt. It may mean you had trouble with it. And sometimes when that happens, it does cause you to throw your hips forward. But you can see here that space is off there. Other thing we look for is casting of the hand. So we take it at toe touch, where we want that lead hand inside the elbow at toe touch and heel plant. And so you're doing good from that standpoint. All right. And so next we're going to switch over to the 3D piece. And here we're looking for X factor, which is the separation between your shoulders and your hips. And so you get a pretty decent 25 degrees. Don't worry too much about the graph, but 25 degrees X factor, and we want 25 to 35 degrees, which is great. And this top left one is it shows me your sequencing, okay? And so here, what we want to see, your peaks are actually pretty good, meaning power-wise. But what we want to see, and I don't know how well you can, let me pull it up a little closer, is we want the peaks to happen in a certain order. And for you, they're happening slightly backwards. So we want the orange to peak first, which is your pelvis, then the green, which is your thorax and your shoulder, and then the red in your lead arm. But as you can see here, best you can, the red is peaking, then the green, then the orange. So I know it's a little hard to see with those dots, but red's peaking, then the green, then the orange. So your body is firing, but just in the wrong sequence ever so slightly. Your graph is actually one of the better graphs. It's just in the wrong order. And so what we're going to work on is getting your hips to fire first, then your thorax, and then your arms. And what I suspect, if we do that, we'll actually see an increase in this red graph, meaning more velocity. So the point is we're trying to get proper transfer of power, and it should go in a 1, 2, 3 order, but it actually yours is kind of going 3, and then 2 and 1 are following. There's really no like transfer of power, like they're firing, but you're not maximizing your power generation because you're out of sequence. Again, some of that is related to some of the physical findings and that your body is not allowing you to do that. So doing those corrective exercises are key. But even with the physical characteristics that we found, you're not far off from properly sequencing. So I suspect that if you do these exercises, we hope your sequence will improve, and then you'll see some good gains here soon. All right, thanks, and we'll be talking soon. Bye-bye.